Welcome to Milking the Franchise, the Cash Cow Chronicles, where me and Chris watch
movies.
Welcome to the show. This is the show where we live in a franchise for as long as we can handle it. Chris, how are you?
Good. Yeah, doing good, Tanner.
Good.
The way you pitched that, I think is pretty accurate because, I think we ran out of patience for Garfield. So we're moving on to something else.
We are finally done with Garfield. Luckily, it ended with a decent movie. Yeah. Chris, what else do we do on this podcast?
We chat. We shoot the shit a little bit, and we also do some surveys. Is that what you're leading me to here?
No, just in general. What do we do on the podcast?
Yeah, we pick a movie franchise and we watch all the movies in that franchise in order. And while we're watching the movies, we like to try and find anything else that kind of goes along with the IP. So any video games or books or graphic novels or whatever other stuff is out there for us to dig our little claws into.
And Chris, I gotta say, you sound closer than ever.
I think I might be, Tanner. Yeah, I am back for the summer to visit my family. So I am laying in my childhood bed as we record today.
Nice. The race car?
Big time change of scenery. I wish it was a race car.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you made it over safe.
Appreciate it.
Coming in loud and clear there, Taggart.
Right on. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, yeah. Just a little tired, but had a great Bad Movie Monday this week. Just kind of hanging out.
Love to hear it.
Ready to get into this franchise that's a total blind spot for me. Today we're going to watch, or we did watch, Beverly Hills Cop. In anticipation of the new fourth sequel, Axel F, that comes out next month. So we're going to watch all those in order. Chris, had you seen this movie before?
I had seen this one. I think this one was on Comedy Central when I was a kid. So a lot of those movies I have like some kind of cursory experience with, but haven't seen it in years. So it was pretty fun kind of coming back to this today. Have you seen any of these? Is this total new territory for you?
I definitely had seen clips on TV. I don't think I've ever watched it, like sat down and watched it all the way through, but I've seen it in bits a bunch. Like I remembered, the food delivery to the cop's window scene, and I was like, I've seen this before, but I couldn't remember any of the other stuff. But yeah, it's one of those, it's just like, it was a huge movie, and, it's just a big blind spot for me, so.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to hear what you thought as we get into this episode. Yeah.
Well, can't wait to do that. But first, we got to wrap up some Garfield shit. We got to go over the survey from last week for the Garfield movie.
Part of this show that we really like. Every episode we put out a survey to kind of go along with it. And we hope it's a chance for you guys to kind of make some jokes and participate with the show. If you want to get straight to the Beverly Hills Cop content, just jump ahead about 10 minutes. But also check the show notes for this episode because we'll have a new survey that goes along with this movie. And we would love your help making some jokes. We'll read your stuff on air.
Absolutely. Shout out to the Garfield subreddit for taking the survey. We got some good responses here. Let's do it.
Cool. Let's dive in.
So this is the Garfield movie. Again, if you don't want spoilers, skip ahead a few minutes. Favorite new character in this movie was Vic. Overwhelming support for Samuel L. Jackson's character.
Okay.
Garfield's estranged father. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Then we asked you to make some cat puns. So in the movie, John was reading books like The Great Gatsby and Romeo and Juliet. So we wanted you to come up with more cat pun books for John to read. We got Catnip Everdeen.
Oh, I made the same one. That's great.
That's not the name of the book, though. I was thinking Hunger Games, but I couldn't think of a good pun. I don't know. And then we got Big Shrek's Big Boat. It sounds like my friend Matt somehow infiltrated this.
He might have.
No.
Big Shrek's Big Boat.
Okay, yeah.
All right, I'd read it.
I'm trying to find the pun there, but it's just the Shrek comment. Then we got Cat 22.
Great.
A Perfect Murder.
Ooh.
And Dial C for Cat.
Great. I love those.
Cat 22 I was pretty proud of. That was mine. The Petite Prince. Is that the name of a book?
Do you know that book? It's the
Little Prince?
Petite Prince. Yeah, I think it's a French book. It's like a little kid's book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, but Prince is spelled Prints. Got it.
Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm.
Where the Wild Things Roar. Excellent. That's a good one. And then Katniss.
Yeah, I actually think whoever put in Catnip Everdeen, that's a better pun than I had. So hat tip to that listener.
Hat tip to the catnip.
That's right.
Next question, we asked you to come up with a name for the animal translation app in the Garfield movie. We got Let's Talk Pets. That's like a realistic name, so very good. Cat Meow Later.
Is that like Catch Me Later?
Catch Me Outside? I don't know.
I don't know.
The Candy Crush animal translation app.
Good. Yeah, get it branded. That's important.
Muolingo and Dua Lipa Lingo.
Dua Lipa Lingo. Very good. Yeah.
And Bow Wow. Simple. Good. How do you feel about drones being the future of delivery? This movie had drones, thousands of drones delivering food in one scene. It's all right, good, yummy, and hungry. And then
overwhelmingly positive responses to machines taking all of our jobs. Yeah.
And then bummed. Can we keep any of the jobs? But you don't have to tip a drone. Come on, Chris.
That's true.
I can get my food delivered like a few dollars cheaper.
Yeah. Great point, Tanner.
Well, I'm afraid to leave the house, and I just get food delivered. Rate the Garfield movie. It got 100% of the vote for 4 out of 5. Wow.
Right on. Yeah.
So people liked it. I liked it.
I did too. It was a fun movie. We talked about it last week. I think we were both pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So next one up is favorite Garfield movie. This is just overall Garfield franchises questions. We watched all the theatrical movies and some direct-to-DVD stinkers, but favorite one, the Garfield movie, is overwhelming.
In a landslide.
Second up is Garfield the movie. Maybe they got confused because they're basically the same title, rearranged, or they just really like that Bill Murray movie.
Yeah. They like what was the phrase that you coined a couple weeks ago? The bad joke.
Well,
jazz?
I didn't. Oh, bad joke jazz. Yeah. Okay, I do.
Maybe they like the bad joke jazz from the Garfield the movie.
I got to remember that for other movies later on. Bad joke jazz. Favorite Garfield voice actor, Lorenzo Music. 100% of the vote.
The only choice.
Yeah. I heard that Frank Welker, I didn't mention this last week, was upset that they didn't ask him to do the voice in the new movie, the Chris Pratt movie.
Wait, the guy who did the direct-to-DVD movies wanted to be considered?
Yes. And like the newer cartoons that are not good also.
Okay.
Yeah. He was upset that they didn't even ask him. But he was bad.
I mean, I guess if that's your claim to fame, I mean, maybe I'd be upset too. But
no, that's the guy that's like the highest grossing actor of all time, or one of them, because he's been in so many movies.
Well, maybe that's what he wanted. He missed out on a payday. That's what he's upset about.
I know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like his movies have grossed the most. I don't know if he actually gets paid that well. I mean, he must get paid pretty well. Anyway, where do you want the Garfield franchise to go next? Some people want a sequel to the new Chris Pratt movie, a new TV show, and then we got to vote for a gritty, normal origin story similar to Joker.
I'm glad somebody voted for that. That brings a smile.
That was me.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that. Yeah, just call it normal. Oh God, it could be so good. All right. What do you think makes Garfield such an enduring character, and why do you like him? We got, I think it's his attitude and his big ego for himself. He's relatable.
Great.
All right, so based on the first person's answer and then the second one, the second person has attitude and a big ego. He's relatable. It's such a cliche that it's ironically funny at this point. So it's almost like a meme, right? Is that why people like him?
That's why this person likes him. And I think that's a great answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe that's why it's endured for so long, where people are like, oh, this is just stupid, silly thing, but now it's like Shrek in that same way, where it's kind of a meme just to even talk about Shrek.
Sure.
You know? And then he's a lazy cat who eats lasagna. Need I say more?
You needn't. I understand your point completely.
It taps into our relationship with pets. Oh, yeah, I like that one.
I wrote that one, and I think that's pretty universal. You know, everybody loves a pet.
I think all of these
are a good thing to build around. Yeah.
Correct. I mean, it wasn't like a right or wrong answer, but they're all good reasons. Garfield lives on. We'll see what happens, but we are done with Garfield. And I'm ready to move on, Chris.
I'm also ready to move on. I'm sure we'll be back when Chris Pratt goes back to Hairball and Lasagna Land. But until then, Tanner, let's change gears a little bit here.
Let's do it.
Where are we heading next?
Oh, the beautiful sights. The sun is out in Beverly Hills.
Hoo-wee!
Yeehaw!
Yeah.
You don't hear much about Beverly Hills anymore. Is it still like the fancy place that it sounds like? Do you know?
Oh, that's a great question. Since 90210 went off the air, how am I supposed to keep up with the goings-on of Beverly Hills?
Exactly. When did that show come out? That must have been... Beverly Hills was like all the rage in the 80s and 90s, it seems like. But I don't hear about it anymore. Yeah. But, yeah, let's do it. We're talking Beverly Hills Cop, starring Eddie Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
This movie came out in 1984. It was directed by Martin Brest. Great name. Brest, though. Yeah, he's made a lot of good movies.
What else has he done? Talk to me.
Oh, he did Midnight Run and Scent of a Woman, which was like a big Oscar movie.
So Al Pacino and Scent of a Woman? Was that his big one?
Yeah, the hoo-ah.
Yeah.
Great ass. Yes, that is the one. I guess he did Meet Joe Black. I think that was a hit. But then he made Geely in 2003 and
That's
never
a feather
worked
to have in your cap, you know?
Never worked again. Legitimately. Never worked again.
Ended his career.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I was kind of looking up like why did he quit? He's still alive. He just I don't know, it was so bad that he just got out completely. It seems like they would have given him a second chance. I know it was bad, but he had like a string of really good movies.
Yeah. So. I mean, this movie alone was such a hit. You really would have thought it would have bought him kind of a blank check for a couple movies, you know?
Yeah. You know, exactly. Try again. Let's try one more time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of bad directors. I mean, it looks like he directed for SNL too, so he was part of that in some way. Geely, he wrote as well. The only one he actually wrote.
Oh,
maybe that's what it was.
That might have been it. He finally got complete creative control, and that's what happened.
Yeah. He's like, I'm gonna just retire with my money. Yep. So Beverly Hills Cop. Chris, where do you want to start?
Man, Tanner. Well, not in Beverly Hills because that's not where this movie begins.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, I think this movie came out in 1984. It was nominated for a screenplay Oscar for best writing,
Mm-hmm.
and produced by younger Jerry Bruckheimer. So a lot of, I don't know, great people attached to this, and obviously this was kind of Eddie Murphy. This is kind of peak Eddie Murphy. This first movie,
Yeah.
so excited to talk about all that stuff with you. But this movie begins in Detroit, which is where Axel Foley, Eddie Murphy's character, is a cop. And we get an opening scene. We don't know he's a cop yet. He is kind of selling some stolen cigarettes to a couple goons, like I don't know if they're mobsters or what, but there's a couple goons he's trying to sell these stolen cigarettes to out of the back of a big truck. And yeah, that's where the story picks up.
And I'm looking here. He did. This was like his fourth movie. Eddie Murphy. So he had already done 48 Hours was like his first movie. And I would sometimes get these two movies confused. 48 Hours. Have you seen 48 Hours?
I have never seen 48 Hours. Yeah.
I feel like I would get, they're kind of similar. They're both, it's like a buddy cop movie, him and some other guy.
Okay.
Nick Nolte. Anyway, I was just trying to like place this in his career. So it's pretty early on.
I think in my house, at least, we watch Trading Places more than Beverly Hills Cop, so I know that movie pretty well.
That's Dan Aykroyd?
Him and Dan Aykroyd, yeah.
I don't think I ever saw that one either.
It's a pretty fun one. I like that movie quite a bit.
I'm more of a like an early 2000s, late 90s Eddie Murphy. You know, that's where I really...
Oh, the Bowfinger and Dr. Dolittle days? Those.
Well, Bowfinger actually is a great movie, but... The Nutty Professor, Dr. Dolittle, I loved those as a kid.
Yeah, no, that's great.
The Clumps. Anyway, what a career.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, it starts in Detroit.
He saved SNL almost single-handedly.
I know.
Icon. Yeah.
That's crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
It still wasn't very good until the early 90s, but he definitely saved it from like going off of air, right?
Yeah, that's what... I'm not the first one to say that. I think that there's a pretty common sentiment around that.
Yeah. It wasn't Robert Downey Jr., I'll tell you that.
In his one season on the cast? Yeah.
All right. So we start in Detroit. He's setting up some goons to buy some cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
Is this just a whole setup just to arrest these guys, right?
I think that's the play. Yeah, he's trying to get them to spend $5,000 on these cigarettes from the back of a truck, and it's probably some sort of entrapment scheme, and then they'll get arrested. But his plan doesn't quite go according to plan because the goons lowball him, and before they're able to kind of sort out a price, the real cops, not the undercovers, show up, and we get a pretty fun car chase to start the movie.
Yeah, and also in the first 5 minutes of the movie, we already had two like hit soundtrack songs. So one thing about this movie is the soundtrack was huge, double platinum, 2 million plus sales.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
like
awesome.
big time. It won a Grammy. It won, all these songs are hits. We'll talk more about the instrumental soon, I'm sure, but
yeah,
it starts off with "The Heat Is On" by Glenn Frey. It's a great song.
Yeah.
And then during
80s
this
banger.
Yeah. And during this chase scene that we're talking about, the Neutron Dance by the Pointer Sisters is playing at one point. So, it's got an upbeat, fun, kind of synthy soundtrack to it. And I feel like much like Shaft or something, where it's kind of just a general police movie, the music elevates this movie as well.
Oh, in a big way.
Yeah.
I think, without the music and without Eddie Murphy, I think this would have been a pretty normal movie, but those two things certainly elevated this to kind of cult status.
Even with that, maybe we'll talk about it at the end, but I feel like it still feels like kind of a normal movie.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that car chase at all, Tanner?
Well, the main part that I remember is that he's kind of hanging off the back on this like chain the entire
Yeah.
time. So he's just like hanging out with the open back of the truck, and cigarettes are just falling everywhere. It kind of culminates with the driver just crashing into everything.
Yes.
Like a demolition derby.
It's like a Blues Brothers style crash scene. Just so many
Yeah.
cars hitting each other. Like, yeah, huge crashes. And it's kind of funny that all this was over like $5,000 in stolen cigarettes. And there are so many boxes of cigarettes just falling out onto the street throughout this whole car chase.
And they mention that he took that out of like the evidence room or whatever. Like he took this truck out of evidence behind everyone's back and just set these people up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
some questionable police work.
Yeah, and so right away you see that he kind of does his own thing and he's off the book, all the time. So, how does it end? Is there anything else about that chase?
I think that's about it. The one of the goons had been the driver in this truck, and Eddie Murphy was just kind of hanging out in the back. The driver runs away and gets caught by the cops, and the cops show up and pull guns on Eddie Murphy before recognizing him. And then fully, I should have known it was you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the cops know this guy, and we go. That's a pretty good Eddie Murphy laugh. The cops recognize this guy, and then our next scene is at the police station, kind of dealing with the fallout of this bust gone awry.
Do you think, besides the music, Eddie Murphy's laugh is what made this movie such a hit?
Maybe. Is that the third character in this movie?
Yeah, Eddie Murphy's laugh. So yeah, he gets in trouble a little bit. He's back at the precinct. Paul Reiser is there. There's a lot of little cameos from people that became famous later. And he's not really listening to him, but the chief kind of grills him over all this.
Yeah, this is totally boilerplate, normal cop movie stuff, but I think it's kind of elevated just by the people that they have doing it. Paul Reiser's pretty funny. Eddie Murphy's pretty funny. The Captain Gil Hill is pretty funny as a hard ass.
And I think we get our big song here somewhere in here. I have it written down.
Is Axel F?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you counted how many times it played in this movie, right?
I tried to count. I got up to 7, I believe. But there's a good chance that I missed 1 or 2. But yeah, there's this song in this movie called Axel F by a German, mostly record producer, but he also made some of his own stuff called Harold Faltermeyer. He's from Munich. And he's known mostly for this soundtrack and then also the movie Fletch, which also has a very synth heavy, but also very iconic soundtrack and score. And he did both of those movies.
And Top Gun as well.
Top Gun Anthem, yeah, which is more kind of guitar-y than these other 2 movies, but kind of an interesting kind of level to this because he won a Grammy for that song. He initially called the song Axel F the banana theme because he wrote it for that scene in the movie, which we'll get to in a little bit, where Axel shoves bananas in the tailpipe of the car. So he initially called it the banana theme, which is kind of a funny name for such an iconic song. And they changed it to Axel F when they decided to use it at like every transition scene throughout this movie.
Wow. Yeah. It's a strange title still, just Axel F. I think I mentioned last week, maybe at the end of the show, that I was confused by the 4th sequel coming to Netflix this year is called Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. And I thought that was like a really bad title. And now it makes sense. I didn't realize the song, which is very iconic. Like I've heard it a bunch, even though I haven't really seen the movie all the way through. Like I knew the song very well, just from pop culture. But yeah. So now it all makes sense why it's called Axel F.
Yeah.
But
they've got this song. I might as well lean into it.
Do you want to sing it for us real quick?
That was pretty bad.
You recognize that, right?
Don't sing too many more bars or we're going to get in trouble with YouTube, Tanner.
It's true. I've already gotten in trouble this week somehow.
Because it sounds so good when you sing
it. What was I gonna say? The Heat Is On kind of has. I got it confused with that. That's like also has this little synth opening to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Axel F is gonna play throughout. Chris, keep us updated on the when it shows up
on the counts. Okay, I should have put a little mark every time it popped up.
Yeah, you don't have timestamps for each one, so people can follow along.
I'm sure there's a website that does. We'll just have to put that in the show notes or something.
AxelFtimestamp.com.
Yes. Oh, get that URL, dude. Grab that before somebody else does.
Great. Let's see. Where are we here?
Let's see. So he's in trouble with the boss, and our next scene is the first playing of Axel F. He's driving. He parks his car. His car's kind of a beater, so he has to like go back because it's rolling and put the e-brake on. And then there's a little bit of intrigue. He pulls his gun and he's like walking into this building. Is it an arrest? Is it a raid? It turns out it's neither of those things. It's his own apartment, and his buddy Mikey is there kind of waiting for him. And so they reconcile, and we get a bunch of like Eddie Murphy laugh as we get to meet Mikey a little bit.
Yeah.
And what's going on with Mikey?
Mikey was in prison. I don't know what for, or he was in jail. And he got out 6 months prior, he says, and didn't bother to call his best friend. But he went to Beverly Hills and was working. Kind of just loosely set this guy up a little bit. He seemed, seems like they wouldn't necessarily be best buds. Like, this guy's kind of a criminal, I guess.
Yeah.
Did they say what he went to jail for the first time?
I don't think they brought that up. He just served time. Yeah.
And he mentions that he was working for this girl named, was it Jenny?
Mm-hmm.
What's her name? Yeah.
Jenny.
In Beverly Hills, an old friend of theirs. So they're kind of just hanging out. They go play some pool. They get very drunk. And at the end of it, they go back to Eddie Murphy's place and get attacked by two men in the hallway. So kind of out of nowhere, he's like trying to stand him up, his friend who's like can't stand.
Super wasted.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody just comes up and hits Eddie Murphy in the head, knocks him out cold. And these two people, I recognize one of them, obviously. Did you recognize him? Yeah.
I didn't recognize the other guy, but yeah, one of them is Jonathan Banks, who plays Mike Ehrentrout on Breaking Bad. And it's kind of fun to see him as a young man with like black hair and a full head of hair. Yeah. But you can still tell it's him. He has that same like gruff demeanor. He's a great second in command to a bad guy, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't say a whole lot, but he's got a menacing look for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And during this confrontation, they're kind of like shaking down Mikey and asking him questions like, what he's doing. I can't remember exactly how it went down, but it turns out he like took some of these German marks from these guys, and these guys were upset about that. Or like bonds for German marks. How does that work?
Yeah, they had kind of shown these bearer bonds. They also referred to them as Deutschmarks, which is I think just the currency of Germany. So I think they're just bearer bonds. And yeah, like Tanner said, like in the hallway here, it's very clear that something that Mikey did crossed these guys. And this scene ends with him taking 2 bullets to the head. So Mikey is now dead. And as a viewer, I think you're kind of left to wonder why. You're not quite sure what happened in LA. You're not quite sure where these bearer bonds came from. But Mikey crossed the wrong people.
Yeah, he does like a professional hit. They mention later too. He like 2 bullets to the back of the head is the classic professional hit job.
Do you know that from your time as a professional hitman, Tanner?
I've seen John Wick.
That makes you a pro. I think you're qualified to speak on the topic.
No, but now. I have heard of that in movies. It's come up as plot points in other movies where that's the way that they tell that this was not just a random murder. It's like a professional hit job. Somebody hired these men.
Yeah.
And so when Eddie Murphy wakes up, he talks to the cops, and he wants to figure out why his friend was killed. And he takes vacation time to go to Beverly Hills, and they warn him, you better not be following up on any of this stuff, like, or else you're out. We're going to fire you. No more going rogue.
Yeah.
But, he doesn't give a shit.
And the boss won't give him the case here in Detroit because he's too close to the case. Yeah, so he decides he's going to take his vacation time and head out to L.A.
Yeah. So he shows up in Beverly Hills. It kind of like cuts where it's like, you better not do all that. You're going to be fired. Like, go to the hospital, his boss says. And then it just cuts to him, like, driving down in Beverly Hills. It's sunny and he's having a good time. Yeah, it just like kind of has that. He's got a lot of energy. This movie is just filled to the brim with like Eddie Murphy charisma, and that's the whole movie basically revolves around that. It only works because of that. I mean, there's other good stuff, but so where does he go? He goes to the hotel to check in, and
the hotel is booked, so there's no rooms available, and he overhears one of the women working at the front counter saying that, and so he kind of leans into that, and he, like Tanner was saying, a lot of Eddie Murphy charisma here. He just shows up and kind of accuses them of like losing his reservation, and like
he works for Rolling Stone, and he's about to interview Michael Jackson, and like they can't fuck this up. Michael Jackson's like the biggest thing in 1984. So there's even people dressed like Michael Jackson in the Thriller video.
Yeah. The kind of the black and red leather suits. Yeah, we have those people walking around in LA.
So this movie consists of like his whole character is like he shows up in a spot where he's not supposed to be, and like he talks fast and like lies and like tries to like you know what I mean?
He kind of just charismas his way out of all of his problems.
Yes, every situation he gets in, he's just like, "What are you doing here? I'm not supposed to." He like starts talking so fast and kind of like talking in circles and confusing the people to get what he wants. It's like that's like his biggest character trait, I would say.
Yeah, big time, and it works every time. So every time. This time, he pretends he's working for Rolling Stone, and kind of accuses them of dropping the ball, and they end up giving him like a nice suite at the single room rate. So he gets a screaming deal on this fancy ass hotel suite.
And it's still $234 a night.
Which in 1984 money was a lot of money, right?
That's a lot. No, he was like,
look, it's still a lot of money.
The scene, definitely, yeah. The scene plays out kind of like he's happy that he got this price and a good deal, but then he hears the actual price of the place and is trying to like. He's disappointed because it costs so much, but he says it's okay because he already like lied to get himself to this situation.
Oh, totally. Yeah. He can't give it all up now.
So he gets the hotel room and then he goes and visits his friend Jenny. It is Jenny, right?
It is Jenny, yes.
Okay.
And Jenny is a mutual friend with Mikey and with Axel. They go back to their neighborhood in Detroit, and she is now living in LA as the manager of an art gallery. And it's got some kind of weird avant-garde art. Some of it was pretty cool looking.
Is she not the artist?
I thought she just ran the gallery.
Oh,
but I could have heard that wrong. Yeah.
I think
and she has a kind of a funny little like European like worker there named Serge. And
Bronson Pinchot.
Yeah. Is he from other stuff? I didn't really.
Well, yeah, he's in quite a bit. I remember him. There's a show in like the 80s called Perfect Strangers. Okay. And he played this character named Belky, who is like a foreigner. It's like about an American living with this like goofy foreigner guy, and that's Bronson Pinchot.
Okay, gotcha.
But he's been in a lot of stuff, Risky Business, True Romance, lots of different things. But apparently I was like, when I was a kid, my parents... I remember hearing stories of like, and I don't remember ever watching the show, but I loved Belky on this show. Apparently, like I just thought he was like the funniest thing. A lot of the jokes in that show are probably just him like having a funny accent or something. But
that's pretty much what his character is here.
Yeah.
He doesn't get a ton of screen time, but he's kind of a scene stealer.
Yeah.
There's a moment here where Eddie Murphy's like asking about how much one of the pieces is, and he's like $10,000, and Eddie Murphy goes, "Get the fuck out of here! I cannot. It's a very important piece." And I feel like that kind of transcended into like a pop culture moment.
Yeah.
He's got some funny lines, and his delivery is really great.
I don't know. It looks like he was in Risky Business before this.
Okay.
But this was like probably his breakout role, because 2 years later, a year and a half later, he got the Perfect Strangers TV show, and that was 151 episodes.
Oh my!
From 86 to 93. So, yeah, that was a big hit, I think.
Yeah, good work as an actor.
Definitely
6 years of network TV.
Bronson Pinchot is there. What else happens at this place?
So he and Jenny kind of go to catch up. She recognizes him, is happy to see him, and they go to talk and kind of hear she's sad that Mikey has died, and kind of gives him some more details. And the big detail is that Mikey didn't actually work for her. He was hired by the gallery owner, this guy named Victor, and he worked at the gallery's warehouse. And in my mind, it's kind of like you must have to be a big time art dealer to have your own warehouse for all the art and stuff, right?
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
He's
an importer exporter
of art.
Generic. I mean, I assume he is like a rich guy who this is one of his things, importing art. If everything was clean and whatever, that's just like one of his things that he does. So I'm assuming it's not all art in that warehouse.
Okay.
Yeah. Right?
It's just general import-export business stuff.
I think so. I think that's what they're implying. And some of the things that he does own this building. He probably owns other stuff. Rich people have their foot in a lot of different places. So that's what I'm assuming.
Okay. I'll give it to you.
Because that would be a lot of art coming in and out.
A lot of art coming and going. Yeah,
just for this one little gallery. How popular of an art gallery is this?
It's in Beverly Hills, so it's got to be popular.
That's true. I might have to just do some digging on Beverly Hills in general next week.
Oh, yeah. Report back.
You just don't hear about it anymore. And it was like the top place of this is like the swanky LA place, right?
Yeah.
And then you just don't hear about it anymore. So
it's fallen off the radar in a big way. Yeah.
Yep. So Eddie Murphy gets the name of this guy from his friend, from Jenny, and he decides to pay him a visit. Again, he just walks right in, and nobody stops him at all.
He brings flowers and uses the excuse that floral delivery is my life, which I thought was funny. But yeah, just charisma's his way past the receptionist into Victor's office.
Again, he has like a little thing, like the flower delivery, and he just kind of like talks over and says, "I need to do this now. I got to go." He does it so many times in this movie. So he gets up to the office and confronts him just directly, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Banks, who we saw before killing Mikey, is also there, so we know immediately that Victor is the bad guy. There's no pretense for the audience. And the boss is played by Steven Berkoff. And in this first scene, I think I recognized him from Octopussy. He was a bad guy in one of the James Bond movies, but he has a great villain voice.
He looks scary too. He looks like he'd be like an evil Nazi in something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he's in Clockwork
Orange. That's where I've seen him. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think he's like the one that's like puts his eyes, makes him watch all those horrifying images. Is that him?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
I'd have to rewatch that one. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's a good top dog villain. In this first scene, he's wearing like a business kimono. I thought that was kind of funny. It's like
I was going to ask you about this.
Yeah. Please.
He's wearing a suit, but then over it he just has a robe. Is that a business kimono?
And I called it a business kimono, but like I don't know. Is that what business people wear? Is that what art dealers wear? Is it an import export thing, or is this just a
Oh,
1980s thing? I have
okay.
so
This
many
is what I
questions.
gotta research. Yeah, this is what needs researching. Maybe it was a Beverly Hills thing. Um,
Maybe it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I don't know. Yeah, that is a bizarre choice, but he gets up in there and he doesn't confront him about killing him right away. What does he actually say?
He just is asking what Mikey did for him. Like, what was
Right.
Mikey's job when Mikey was working for you? But as soon as Axel brings up Mikey, Victor calls in his goons. He's got a bunch of security guards that come in and grab Axel and carry him downstairs. And they don't use the door. What happens instead, Tanner?
Oh, they toss him through a glass window.
Yeah.
They just break through like this building, right in the front. Why would they do that? Why would they cause such a scene?
I have no idea. Maybe just to get him arrested, because the real cops show up, and that's exactly what happens. But yeah, they
Yeah,
carry him downstairs, and instead of just carrying him outside, they throw him through the window.
that made me laugh. It was
Me
pretty good.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's getting arrested. He's not like worried about any of this really. But they say he's like disturbing the peace or something, and that he broke in. He's got a bunch of witnesses that say he like broke into
Yep.
this place and broke the window. He's like, they threw me through the window. But he's commenting on how nice and clean the police cars are, compared to the ones in Detroit, I think.
Yep.
And then
And they play that up a little bit at the police station too. Like the police station is very different than the one that he's used to in Detroit.
yeah, everyone's more like white collar by the books, whereas in his precinct, it seems like at least he's a little bit more, not dirty, but off the cuff or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Just kind of doing his own thing. Lone wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah. All that stuff. Kind of lethal weapon. Kind of an attitude.
Yeah. Chris, who do we meet at the precinct?
Well, the precinct, we meet most of the rest of the characters that we're gonna meet throughout this movie. The big ones are Taggart and Rosewood. So Taggart is kind of an older cop, and he does everything by the books, sort of, except he punches Axel in the first scene that we meet him. And then and what actor plays Taggart? I know it's Judge Reinhold for
John Ashton.
John Ashton. Okay, great.
No.
I thought,
yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he was. Both of these guys I thought were awesome in their roles. And then Rosewood, Billy Rosewood is a young Judge Reinhold who's kind of the new guy on the force, real kind of wet behind the ears, new cop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wet behind the ears. What does that saying mean? They're new.
Doesn't that mean new?
Probably.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with it though.
Okay.
We also meet the lieutenant, played by Ronnie Cox. Did you recognize this guy, Chris?
I didn't recognize him.
He's in RoboCop.
Oh, okay.
He's Dick Jones in RoboCop.
He is Dick Jones. Yes.
Yeah. But was Dick Jones like the big bad guy, or is he the...
He's the guy he got in a fight with in the urinal. Do you remember that? Like
Yes.
Yeah, so he was like the guy you don't fuck with in RoboCop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He gets killed in the living room scene, right, by Bedecker. Pretty sure.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Well, good to see him again. He just does 80s cop movies, it seems like.
He's playing a good guy in this one, though. More or less. But yeah, he's the lieutenant, and what even happens here? I don't know. They kind of harass him a little bit. They find out that Eddie Murphy is a cop, and ask him what he's doing here. Eddie Murphy the entire time is kind of playing it like, I'm just here on vacation, because he's not supposed to be following these threads at all.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and throughout this scene, they kind of challenge him. He's not being upfront about a lot of things. They had actually called back to Detroit to kind of figure out what's going on, and so it was a good thing that he didn't tell them he was out there researching Mikey's death. But he does earn like a little bit of their respect because Taggart punches him in the gut, and when the lieutenant asks him if he wants to file charges, he says, no, we don't do that where I'm from. He just punched me. Like, it is what it is. And yeah, so I think they have a little bit of begrudging respect for him, even though he is making their lives more difficult. Yeah.
And so I think he talks to his boss in Detroit or something and finds out he isn't supposed to be following this case at all.
Right.
But he sets up Taggart and Rosewood to follow him and make sure he doesn't do anything stupid anymore. So that sets them up for this. They're tailing him back to the hotel. Him and Jenny, I believe, are...
Jenny bails him out, because he's in trouble for disturbing the peace. And she drives him back in her fancy red convertible. Axel spots them tailing them, and when they get to the hotel, he's got a little plan here.
Yeah. He it's a pretty good scene. He sees that, he knows that they're out there tailing him and sitting in their car, so he orders them food. The whole time he's just kind of skirting their follow, like he's way smarter than them and outsmarting them at every turn. But he orders them food from the hotel to be delivered to their beige car out front.
Yeah.
He gets a shrimp salad sandwich, and during this scene, he sneaks out and puts a banana in their tailpipe.
Would that work?
That's what I wanted to ask you. Yeah. I really wanted to talk about this banana in the tailpipe thing. I don't know. Does that? Yeah. What do you think?
I don't know. It immediately causes the car to seize up and stop. And so when Jenny and Axel kind of pull out in their convertible, the cops aren't able to follow them. But I don't know. Would that? I mean, he does put 3 bananas in the tailpipe of the car. And this is the reason that the Axel F song was originally called Banana Theme, was this scene. But I don't know. Would that shut down the car?
A quick search says one person does this actually work? And somebody answered, yes, an exhaust restriction would make the engine hard to start. Potatoes are often used or could be used to anything covering the exhaust is going to send the exhaust back into the car. And yeah, that's not good. So, yeah, I guess it does work, or at least plugging it. They happen to use a banana for this movie, which I don't think it actually plugs the hole well enough when you show it, right? I feel like exhaust could still get out.
Weird shape. Yeah.
Like a potato would work better. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you see who the banana salesman was, by the way? A little cameo.
Was that a Wayans? It looked like a Wayans to me. Which one was that?
I think it was Damon Wayans, although it could have been Keenan Ivory. It wouldn't have been any of the younger ones, but I think it was Damon. Yeah.
It looked familiar, but that was his only scene, so I wasn't able to I don't know. I didn't lock in on it all the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, funny little cameo. And, yeah.
So they fuck up the car, and he and Jenny go off to this warehouse. So they're not being followed anymore, and they find the warehouse where Mikey had worked, and they break in. And they find coffee grounds kind of hanging out. But I don't think they find much else in this moment, do they?
They also see, as they're there snooping around and finding the coffee grounds, they see a van pull up with a couple goons, and they see those goons unloading some of those same bearer bonds that Mikey had back in Detroit.
Right.
And so they pop open a box, take the bearer bonds out, put them in a bag, and then they put the box back together and reload it into their van, which is all very suspicious. Anything else on this scene, or are you ready to head on to the next
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So they leave that warehouse and kind of follow these goons to another warehouse, another bigger one with a lot more people and a lot more going on. And Axel sends Jenny home. He wants to go in and do this alone.
So this guy has 2 warehouses full of art.
Yeah.
Not just one, but 2.
How much art do you have, dude? Like paintings don't even take up that much space. Like they fit like slices of bread. You know, you can pack them together.
And this is the decoy warehouse too. And then the real where
Yeah.
all the real stuff is at the other warehouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now he breaks into another warehouse.
Again, just blind confidence. It's all he has that he's working with.
Is this the scene where the cops kind of confront him, or the warehouse workers, the guards, and he like asks for a smoke and a light and all that?
This is that one. Yes.
Okay, yeah. This is where I really realized that this is his like character style of like just talking fast and crazy. Like he's accusing them of like he's saying he's an inspector and he needs to inspect all these boxes, and he talks so fast and like confusing them and kind of circular talking, right? Just to like get them, get them kind of on their heels.
Legitimate questions like who are you? Why are you here inspecting? Then he turns it on them.
Yeah.
And is like, do you want to ask any questions? You want to make my day difficult? I'll bring the whole department down here and we'll rip this place apart. And so he's just overpowering them with like an avalanche of words.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, he gets them to check the background on like every case in there, starting with the one that he is actually interested in. And he gets a lot of information on where this thing came from, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything specific that I should have taken from that besides just getting information on it?
I think it's just the information. He kind of connects all the dots for us in a couple scenes, but yeah, I think we're just supposed to know here that he, I don't know, has a better handle on kind of their manifest, their, you know, all the ways that these boxes are coming in and out of the warehouse.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then what even happens here?
We leave from here and we head back to the hotel. And Billy and Taggart are on a stake out there. They got chewed out by their boss because they lost Axel. They didn't tail him like they were supposed to. And so they're just there waiting for him to show back up so that they can continue following him. And before they spot him, he spots them and he just hops in the backseat of their car, tells them he's sorry. And kind of convinces them to go with him to a bar. And he says, trust me, you'll love it.
Yeah, he's, let's be friends. Why are we, let's go get a drink together. And they're like, we don't drink on the job.
Mm-hmm.
And so
probably a good rule of thumb as a cop.
Sure.
Probably a good rule of thumb. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Although if you're on you're the kind of cop that's working just like you're always kind of on, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't punch out like in a situation like this. It's not like you clock in and clock out. Like you do it till the job's over, right?
I guess that's true.
So having a beer undercover or like trying to get to know a witness, it's probably not like the craziest thing. Anyways, so he takes him to a strip club. And this is just them kind of getting to know each other, and he's telling Judge Reinhold it's okay if your dick gets hard. That's what it's supposed to do.
Yep.
And they get their club sodas, and they're just kind of hanging out at the strip club until some perps walk in randomly. The timing of this is pretty nuts.
Yeah.
So
worked out pretty well. A couple guys come in wearing heavy leather jackets, which is suspicious because it's LA in the summer. So what do you need them jackets for? It's way too hot for that. What are you even thinking?
Especially with all those hot ladies around, adding that on top of everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, this is just some random perps come in to rob the place, and Eddie Murphy kind of picks up on it. You get to see his work as a cop. He's really good at this. And before they even know it, he has detained one of the guys. He pretends to be drunk and smacks the shotgun out of his hands, and then Taggart gets the other guy. Or no, Reinhold does.
They stopped this robbery, and
so there's a robbery at a strip club right at the moment they happen to be there.
Correct.
How often are strip clubs being robbed, Chris?
Oh man, Tanner, that's a great question. I think we should go to one together and see if it gets robbed.
And rob it? Oh, okay.
And rob it, yeah.
I can't imagine a strip club being robbed. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, what are you going to get? Like a bunch of crumpled up $1
a
bills?
bunch of ones. Yeah,
Yeah, like
you have to go around like scraping ones off the ground, and like, yeah, it seems like a lot of work.
yeah.
I guess there's probably a lot of cash around, but
Well, but it also seems like there's security at those places, right?
oh, definitely, yeah. But
Right, because like
they're ready
you
to
have
murder for
creepy
all those
music.
ones.
Yeah, yeah, seriously. Yeah, I'm just imagining the big bag you would have to carry out all those crumpled up $1 bills. Like they don't stack together and they're not worth anything.
It's not a quick robbery,
Mhm.
like it's
Yeah,
not a in and out kind of job. It's a bad decision, and the timing of it couldn't have been worse.
yeah,
uh,
exactly. Because
yeah.
Eddie Murphy's there and he had him pegged as soon as they walk in. Oh, the one other thing from this scene, he's kind of sharing that he found coffee grounds and like what he thinks is going on with Victor, with his kind of the scheme he's got to get a bunch of smuggled things around customs. So he's kind of sharing this with them, and they're kind of connecting even before the robbers come in. He's getting them on his side.
Absolutely. Yeah, where do they go next?
Yeah, then we go back to the police station, and the lieutenant is pissed off. And he decides that those guys are off the case. They went to a strip club while they were on duty. Like, what were they even doing there? It's not in their jurisdiction. Even though they stopped a crime, like, this doesn't explain away their behavior. And so he puts two other guys to tail Foley. And yeah. Was there anything
So yeah,
else in that scene?
well, they kind of Eddie Murphy lies and says that he drug him out there, and like they
That's
didn't
right.
go.
Yep.
Like he kind of lies to the cop to try to help them, but then Taggart, and it's kind of setting this up for the end of the movie as well. He tells them the exact truth of what happened. They did it, and they're responsible. They only had the club sodas, So he's like a real honest, by the book guy.
Yep.
And you can kind of see they're telling the things about what Eddie Murphy does in these scenes, and the lieutenant is kind of grinning and smiling. You can see that they all kind of are enjoying him, but they're not allowed to enjoy it because they're so by the book, right?
Yep.
So yeah, like you said, they get the new detectives on the case, and these guys don't really stand out much to me, but I think that's kind of the point, right?
I think so too. Yeah. They also don't get a lot to do here. They're only in a couple scenes. But in this scene, they tail Eddie Murphy to Victor's house. He's kind of scoping out the place. And then when he sees Victor's car leave, he hops in his car and follows him to what we find out is a country club. But on the way, he uses a red light to kind of lose the cop car.
Yeah.
He's a better cop than these Beverly Hills cops, He can, he can use them like that.
Before that, he like tries to send out food to them as well, but it doesn't work on them. Doesn't distract them. So I'm guessing these cops are better than the other two cops, right?
I think they might be. Yeah, I think they might be.
There's also a scene here where they go to they follow him to Victor's house basically, and they're kind of hanging out outside, and he's got like some picnic supplies in his trunk where they have like drinks and food and everything. They're like, "Seems like you're ready for a stakeout. Why are you here?" And he's like, "No, I'm just got some picnic stuff."
It's a picnic. Yeah, I'm on vacation.
And then he sees a car leaving the compound or Victor's house or whatever, and he's like, "All right, well, it's time for me to go. I'm gonna just take off." Casually. So this whole time he's like pretending like he's not, because he's not supposed to be getting involved, but he's skirting around it by, everyone knows he's doing it, but they can't actually nail him for it, I guess is the thing.
It seems like they're spending a lot of resources to just follow him around, though.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it'd be worth it for just one random dude who's there from Detroit, but maybe that's the most crime that they get in Beverly Hills. Like Tanner said, haven't heard anything about Beverly Hills in a bunch of years, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, then he, like you said, he ditches them in a red light, and he follows this car to I don't know what this is. It's not a restaurant, but they're having a giant feast. A bunch of rich people are in this giant house having a feast.
I thought it was I thought it was like a country club, like a members
Okay.
only, like
Yes.
buffet. Like
You're
it's
right.
a fancy place like that with a guy, like a maitre d' that signs you in and all that stuff.
You're right, because he said we should make you a member at one
Yes,
point.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So how does he get into this place, Chris?
This one is the most ridiculous one.
Yeah.
When he pulls up, he gives the valet his car keys and he says, "Can you put this in a good spot?" He's driving this piece of shit Chevy Nova. "Can you put this in a good spot? All this other shit happened last time I parked here."
Yeah.
Which I thought was a really funny line.
That's good.
And then he gets past the maitre d' by pretending to be Victor's gay lover named Ramon, and he has herpes and he has to tell Victor. And the maitre d's like, initially he's like, "Oh, let me bring him the message. I'm not letting you go in there." And then he tells him all that. And he's like, "I'm not breaking that news. You better go tell him." And so he lets him into this country club.
I feel like he made up an STD name, or was it just herpes? I thought he said some kind of like something herpes 10.
Herpes
he like
simplex 10 was what he called it. I don't know if that's
okay.
a thing or if it's not a thing. I'm not familiar enough, but yeah, it's a pretty funny way to get into this one. But once again, it's just him being charismatic and kind of going where he's not supposed to be by fast talking.
Yeah, so he shows up at the table. It's Jonathan Banks and the Victor character. And he just, well, first of all, Jonathan Banks kind of gets up in his face and he throws him onto the table with like all the turkey or whatever the heck it is. All the food, the buffet. And then he sits down and he confronts Victor to his face and says, "You're up to a lot of shady shit. I think you killed Mikey." So he just straight up confronts him, which I really appreciate in this movie, where he has no fear in any of these situations. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And is just upfront with people. So kind of they have a little talk, and that he's going to kill this guy, or he like threatens to take him out or get him arrested at some point. And then the cops escort him out again.
Yep. So, and he gets taken back to the station, Beverly Hills Police Department. This is where he kind of lays out the whole scheme. That Victor is smuggling in bonds and drugs, and then he's retrieving these smuggled goods from the shipments before they hit customs inspections. And so he's able to smuggle all this stuff in. But the problem is he doesn't have any evidence around the drugs, which is the biggest, crime.
Something that they could actually use.
Act on.
Yeah.
Exactly. Also he didn't have warrants for any of these things that he did. So the way he obtained all the evidence, even of the crimes he did see, is like a little muddied. And so even though these cops that we've met and these cops that we've grown to like, Billy and I'm sorry, who's Ashton's character again? Taggart and the lieutenant, they're kind of on his side, but he doesn't have the evidence. And the lieutenant's boss, the chief, is sick of his crap, and basically is like, "You're here, making life difficult for like a prominent businessman. We want you out of LA." And so he basically sends Billy with him back to the hotel. He tells him you need to have him pack up his stuff and escort him out of LA city limits. This guy's not welcome here anymore.
Yeah, this guy kind of just shows up out of nowhere. Creepy old man boss. I thought maybe that guy was somebody famous. It seemed like maybe we should have known who he was, but I didn't recognize him.
I didn't either.
He's been in a ton of stuff, so I don't know. But he says that he will drop the charges if he leaves the town, basically. And they also bring up in this scene that one of the things that gets the lieutenant like actually listening is that he found coffee grounds, and they know that the coffee grounds throw off the scent of drugs. So, Taggart's like, "What does that mean? What is that important?" So then they explain that. So this is like a real clue for them, even though it's not hard evidence. They're like, okay, there is something going on here.
Do you use coffee grounds when you smuggle drugs, Tanner?
Yeah, I wrap every time if I'm going to smoke weed, I dip it in coffee grounds first. That's so that nobody.
I use
and smell
decaf
it.
because I feel like when I pack my drugs in real coffee grounds, it gets me too wired.
Yeah.
It's just too much. So
Well,
decaf is where it's at.
if you cover your weed in coffee grounds and then smoke it, it doesn't have a scent. So all
Oh,
you teens out there, if you want to hide the smell of your weed smoking from your parents,
coffee
that's
grounds.
the coffee grounds.
This is
Um,
terrible advice. Terrible advice.
let's see. All right, what happens next? I think him and Reinhold starts driving him like he's told to do, and he's going to escort him out of town, out of the city limits. And on the way, Eddie Murphy convinces him not to. He's very convincing.
He's a very convincing man. Yeah.
And that they're going to go find the drugs officially. And then he shows up at the art gallery and talks to the girl again. During this time, she had been confronted by Victor as well. So, she's kind of mixed up in all this now as well.
Yeah, he wants to know where Axel is staying. I think the implications are pretty clear that they're going to go rough up Axel for the scene that he caused at the country club. And Jenny doesn't give up what hotel he's staying at. She says she doesn't know, and so she's clearly picked a side at this point between her boss and her old friends. And like Tanner was saying, Axel manages to peer pressure Billy into doing what he wants, and so Billy takes him to visit Jenny, and then Jenny grabs her keys, even as the runner of she also has keys to the warehouse for some reason, which seems like an oversight for this criminal operation to me, but that's neither here nor there.
She had keys? I missed that.
Yeah, that's why she brought her keys so that they could get into the warehouse.
I noticed she said at the end of that scene, she's like, all right, let me grab my keys. And then she's in the back of the car. And I was like, why did she need her keys if she's not driving? I assumed they meant keys to her car, but you're right. Now that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Keys to the warehouse. Okay. Yeah. So I think this is the showdown now at the warehouse, right?
Yeah.
They get in there.
They basically convince Billy not to basically wait in the car while they go inside. He works as a cop in Beverly Hills, so he can't do this super illegal drug bust that they're about to do without a warrant. And so Axel and Jenny go in, and Billy stays outside just to watch the door. And inside, what do they find, Tanner?
They find a crate full of coffee grounds.
Yeah.
And they make some coffee, and it's delicious.
And it's delicious. It's so, it's just great coffee. Colombian roast.
Colombian roast. And they find something else from Colombia in there, too. Some cocaine.
Yeah, they do. Underneath the grounds, there's a bunch of bags of cocaine, like you would expect to see them in the movies, wrapped up in cellophane and taped up. Huge blocks of cocaine. And this also, we should mention, they know that this delivery was going down right now because of the information that Axel got earlier at the other warehouse.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So he knew that it was going to be there at this time from his police work. So they find all this stuff, but unfortunately they get caught in the act in this warehouse by a couple of Victor's goons. And Victor also shows up at this time to kind of do his drug deal, I'm assuming, and grabs Jenny, throws her in the car, and tells the guys that he leaves behind to deal with Axel.
Deal with him, as in kill him, we assume. They're gonna basically kill Axel. He's got guns, pointed at him, and Reinhold kind of sees all this happening from out in the car. And sneaks in and saves the day, shoots the guy next to Axel, throws some punches and gets out of the situation. And then they go to, what's his name's house? Victor's house.
Victor's house. Yes,
Yeah.
They head to the house that they were casing earlier. And Billy radios into Taggart and tells him to go check out the warehouse they were just at. It's all the evidence that they need to put this guy behind bars. Axel was right. There's cocaine, let's do this. It's time to make an arrest.
Yeah, so we get a infiltration of this mansion compound thing. It's like a classic 80s movie set. right? Where it's like
Yes.
a rich person's mansion, and there's just guns blazing, constant fire. Some funny moments of like the two other cops, Rosewood and Taggart, like trying to get up over walls and stuff like that. Yeah. Anything else about this little scene?
No, I love your description of it being just like a classic 80s house. Yeah, there's a bunch of like dudes with like rifles on balconies, that they are able to take out one at a time. It's very much an 80s movie, like infiltration scene. It's pretty fun though. There's a lot of little comedic moments.
The rich person mansion. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a couple funny moments in here where Reinhold like just stands up and tries to arrest them. Like, you're under arrest, I'm a cop, and just immediately gets shot at. Then Eddie Murphy gets inside the house and has a shootout confrontation with Jonathan Banks' character, ends up killing him, and immediately gets shot by Victor. So now Axel has been shot.
Yep.
And this is all happening as like the cop cavalry is showing up. So about a dozen cop cars show up. And there's a scene of like security guards from this house are like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. And they take off in a van and crash into a fountain, and all the police cars just pile up and crash into each other.
Yes.
I assume that was just there for comedic effect. Like, hey, why don't we just, how do we make this scene funnier? Let's just have them all crash into each other.
Yeah.
So how does this culminate with the shootout?
Yeah, the scene's kind of set here. The only people left inside the house are Victor, and Jenny and Axel. And Victor has taken Jenny hostage, so he's got a gun to her head. And he drops the line that I thought was funny. He goes, "Be careful, old boy. You might hit me." Like he wouldn't want to hit Victor with the bullet. And at the last minute, the lieutenant barges into the house. And as he's pulling a gun on Victor himself, Jenny ducks out of the way, and Victor won't drop the gun. So we get a little shootout. Axel and the lieutenant both put a bunch of bullets into Victor, and he falls down the stairs. So they've managed to take down the big bad in this movie. And yeah, that's kind of the end of that. And from there, we just get a little bit of wrap up. Anything else you want to add on that kind of that hostage scene there?
No, not really. Yeah, it's an all right little shootout scene.
Yeah.
And backup arrives and they arrest people, and now the chief is here. So the same chief that we talked about a few minutes ago shows up and is like, what the hell happened here? And this time the lieutenant lies. He has this whole story of what happened, and basically gets Axel out of any issues. And everyone knows they're kind of lying. It's one of those things where like everyone knows you're kind of like, making this story sound better than it was, right?
Yeah.
But this time he looks at Taggart and is like, "Is this what happened, Officer Taggart?" Because he's known as the honest guy, and he backs up everyone. And it's a very happy moment. You get a smile from Eddie Murphy.
Yeah. It's a little morally dubious, like they're basically lying to cover up a bunch of laws that they broke and a bunch of things that they did against police code, and they're very lucky that they actually found cocaine, because I think without that, this is like I don't know, a bunch of harassment from the cops.
They just went in and murdered everybody at this mansion for no reason.
Exactly. But it was a different time. I think people's attitudes towards cop movies were a lot different than they are today. But you would need a little bit better of an ending than, hey, it's good to lie to your cop boss.
If it's for a good reason, and that it was already like, it seems okay because that they were actually bad, and Axel Foley was acting out of like, he was right all along. He just didn't have the evidence. So yeah, but it could be the other way. That same thing in a horrible situation where they're lying to their police chief to like get away with murder or something like that. Yeah. But what else happens here? He asked for a favor, and he's like, "I don't know, actually, you kind of exhausted all your favors." he wants him to talk to his Detroit boss to have him like, forgive everything. And he's like, well, if you don't, he's like, I don't know if I want to do that. And he's like, well, I guess I'll stay in Beverly Hills and become a private investigator and hang out here. And he's like, all right, I'll talk to him.
All right, yeah, anything to get you the F out of here. Yeah.
And then he goes back, checks out of the hotel, and the cops are there to make sure he actually leaves town, Rosewood and Taggart. But now they're all kind of buddies. And Taggart offers to pay the bill for that expensive hotel room. I was hoping that would come back around in some way.
Yeah.
And then Eddie Murphy buys two $90 nice robes from the hotel and puts it on the tab as well.
Yep.
A lot of robes. I mean, we got the business robe and now robes at the end.
Oh, that's a great point. It's a robe-based film. Yeah.
And then he's like, I love you. I love the way he talks to Judge Reinhold's character too. He's like, now every time you're dripping wet, thinking you can think of me and your friend Axel Foley. I love you, Billy. Yeah, just a lot of charming stuff here. And then he tells them to follow him and we'll go get another drink. And now they're like, I guess a beer on the clock isn't going to kill me. They're kind of loosened up now because of Axel Foley. They have like become better cops, I guess. And then there ends with a freeze frame on Eddie Murphy's face. What'd you think of that freeze frame?
I mean, I kind of liked it. It fit with the rest of this movie. And, he's the star of the show. Why shouldn't he get the freeze frame at the end?
Absolutely.
But yeah, so we made it through. Tanner, I would love to hear your thoughts on this movie first, because it, as you mentioned at the top, you hadn't seen this before, so this was a pop culture blind spot for you. And I want to know if it lived up to the hype.
Well, okay, I have seen a bunch of parts of this movie. Maybe I had seen it all the way through, or at least in like the first half or the second half, but I don't remember ever watching it all the way through like this. The thing is, it's a good movie. I think it's good. I think performances are great. There's a lot of classic stuff in it. My whole question is like, why are there 4 of these movies? Because is it elevated above just a regular cop movie that much, to warrant 4 sequels? I don't know. I'd probably give it like a 7 out of 10 or something, and then okay, we can get a sequel, sure, but I guess I don't know if it really lives up to its reputation, I guess.
Okay.
Like it's good, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. I had fun watching it. I laughed a few times. I didn't laugh hysterically. Like a movie like Ghostbusters really made me laugh the entire time, from the same year even.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie was just kind of like, I don't know, kind of basic. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but I just don't know if it really like stands out and stands the test of time. So I'm kind of mixed. Let's continue talking about it. What did you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair assessment. I think that the things that elevated above just a normal movie is, prime Eddie Murphy. I thought the supporting cast was great, and the music, they hit us over the head with that Axel F song. And so I think that those things made this movie feel different than just another buddy cop movie. Because on a lot of levels, I think you're right. I think it is kind of a boilerplate by the numbers. Cop argues with his boss and does, follows his moral compass instead of police code to bring down the bad guy. It's a story that's been told a bunch of times, but I think those other things are good enough that it elevates this movie to, maybe not all-time classic status, but it's certainly an Eddie Murphy classic. And
Eddie Murphy himself is great.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. As far as like 4 sequels, I mean, we watched sequels from movies much dumber than this. And I feel like cop movies are so easy to make sequels for because you can kind of just swap in a new bad guy and the conflict is already there. So like building a story around the conflict is pretty easy. You know what I mean? Like cops get into conflict all the time. And so like, it's easy to make a story there. But yeah, I don't know that it deserves I'm really curious what we're
Well,
going
like
to get to when we get to like Beverly Hills Cop 3. Like, what are they going to have left to do?
yeah, that's the thing is like this movie is it's a fish out of water story though, where it's like the
Yeah.
rough Detroit cop comes to Beverly Hills where everything's all straight laced and by the book, and he kind of ruffles things up here. Whereas
Yeah.
like you can't really do that again, and now he's gonna have rapport with everyone there. They're already gonna know and like him. I guess it's just
Yeah.
more of him like
What
rough.
excuses are they going to have to drag him out to Beverly Hills next time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's a great question.
And to be that guy who's again the Detroit cop who dresses in jeans and like a sweatshirt. He doesn't dress in a suit like all these other detectives. So I don't know. As far as the sequel, it's like, okay, what you can't really. Yes, you can just do more police stuff, but the reason this movie works is because of this
the
dynamic.
fish out of water story.
Yeah,
yeah. No,
yeah.
That's totally fair. Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, I bet it's still entertaining. The other thing is the action for this movie isn't really that good. Did you find any action actually that entertaining? There's not a lot of it.
There's not much. Yeah, it's a lot of. It celebrates all the little conversations around the action.
Yeah, I mean it's a comedy first and foremost. I think. So
yeah,
that's why. But
I did like the car chase at the beginning, but I did think
Mhm.
that the showdown at the end was pretty underwhelming.
Yeah,
and yeah, I'll follow you there. I'm with you there.
Yeah, so this was a rated R movie. It's adjusted for inflation. It's the highest grossing R-rated movie ever, I guess, or since 1977.
Okay.
So it was only a $13 million movie to make, and it made $234 million at the box office. So obviously, it got a sequel. It was a huge hit, and yeah, I think the soundtrack is a huge deal. Like I know it sold a lot. We talked about that, but I think that's a huge part of the sensation that this movie was, and Eddie Murphy hype also.
Yeah. That kind of makes sense. I feel like at the time, I mean, the other movie that comes to mind that we brought up a couple times is Ghostbusters, and that movie was certainly elevated by the Ghostbusters theme song. So yeah, and this one won a Grammy for what was that? What was that guy's name?
Harold Faltermeyer.
Thank you. Yep. He won one of his 2 Grammys for Axel F. And yeah, I think you're right. It's like this was like a movie going experience. You got the songs on the radio, and a bright young star on the rise, and it just kind of captured a moment.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like you said, this was nominated won the Grammy for technically best score soundtrack. I don't know if it was for Axel F or for just having a good soundtrack in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a big hit. Even like it reached number 1 on the Billboard charts in like June of '85, which was like 6 or 7 months after the movie came out. And
can you imagine that happening today?
I know.
It's so crazy.
How things like over time grew like that, whereas now it's like if you don't make a big splash at like the box office immediately,
first weekend,
that's it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's all you got because it's going to go straight to streaming. But these kind of back in the 80s, like movies lived on for a while.
Could be a grower, not a shower,
Absolutely. I do know. Yeah. So, but it also was nominated for an Oscar for Best Screenplay, and a Golden Globe nomination for Best Picture, musical or comedy, because they have 2 categories at the Golden Globes.
Okay.
But I was going to ask you, Chris. I think it's good for this one. Is this movie timeless or a time capsule?
Oh man, I like that question. I think it's a time capsule. Like if this movie, I think to me is like a window into the 1980s, like a time that I wasn't very aware. Like we were born in the late 80s, and this is kind of a window into a time. So I think all those establishing shots that they had early with the dudes in the Michael Jackson outfits, and Eddie Murphy wearing a sweatshirt over another sweatshirt, and like it's so 80s.
And Victor wearing a robe over a suit.
Exactly. Yeah. All awesome choices, but all very like indicative of this point in time. And so I'm really curious to see what they do in with a 2024 Axel F movie when we finally do get around to the one that's coming out this year. Um, I'm curious to see how it feels and see if it feels as essential as this one does.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Do you?
What did you think? I would love to hear your thoughts.
Oh yeah. I think it's a time capsule as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out. Well, I mean, it's not that I can't figure it out. It was a huge success. I get it, and it's a good movie. Just that it had so many sequels, and like I feel like the other sequels weren't liked that much. But we're in the era now of like, everything from the 80s is being rebooted or remade, so we're getting another sequel now because Eddie Murphy needs to revitalize his career, I guess. I don't know. I just can't imagine him having that same.
I would much rather he do another Axel F story than like a movie, let's say, just hypothetically, about Pop-Tarts,
Yeah,
if
or
I
like
had to pick.
a Pluto Nash 2. Like, we don't need that. Yeah, so I think it's a time capsule. I don't know. The music is timeless, and that's actually a time capsule too. But I still like the music. Like, the soundtrack is good. I enjoy it. I really think that's a huge part of something like that. Like we talked about. I guess this is when we were practicing and starting the podcast early. We did Shaft and watched all the Shaft movies. And we talked about how the music was a huge part of its success, right? That song was so iconic, even though the first Shaft was kind of it wasn't like they hadn't really figured out the character yet. Yeah. He wasn't this big, bad, sexy guy yet. Or he was, but it wasn't like they really played it up in the sequels where he is like, this super sexy, super James Bondy, like Black James Bond kind of thing. So yeah. Anyway, I think the music is the reason that this movie stuck out.
Yeah,
right?
and I think the producers knew what they had with that song because I think Harold Faltermeyer called it Banana Theme, and they turned it into Axel F because they knew they're like, oh, we're gonna drive this one into the ground. We're gonna play it 7 times. This is like a key part of what's gonna make all this stuff click.
Like, this is the movie.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Do you have any MVPs, Chris?
Oh man.
Or beef?
I don't know if I have any beef. I loved the casting. I think it deserved recognition for the screenplay. I thought the writing was really funny. Yeah, I think the action could have been better, but that might just be my lens having seen, 30, 40 more years of movies after this. MVPs, I mean, obviously Eddie Murphy. Victor, the actor they had for him, was great. And the music. Yeah, I don't know. You got anything else? Anything weird or wild to throw in there?
Not really. No, yeah. I think it's just Eddie Murphy, and it's just like the hype around Eddie Murphy was huge. 48 Hours was a pretty big hit, and they're like, oh, yeah, now we got Eddie Murphy just going for it, like doing whatever he, this is his prime. Like, this is his prime by far.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess Eddie Murphy's that. The beef would just be that it's just kind of basic. I don't know. The jury's still out. Maybe over some time over the next weeks, I'll think about it if I really enjoyed it or not.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
See if it grows on you at all, and see if when they build out this world in the next couple sequels, what we think of it then.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Does it warrant a 4th sequel? We'll find out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we don't really have a ton of milk. Did you want to talk about the soundtrack at all?
I mean, I kind of already shared the 2 anecdotes that I had about our boy Harold Faltermeyer. I do think he also did the soundtrack for Fletch, and I brought that up with you. Another classic banger of a soundtrack, and I hope we get to watch those movies together because those are also kind of fun. fun 80s movies. So
Yeah,
maybe someday we'll come back to Harold Faltermeyer.
Yeah, I've never seen it, so
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know that I have much else with the soundtrack.
Well, there's a couple Patti LaBelle songs that were also nominated for Grammys and were big hits for her. Like New Attitude, I got a new attitude. And Stir It Up, which plays over the ending credits. So again, they keep like churning out singles for this over months after the movie came out. Big hits all around. So
yeah,
I just find that interesting. Totally different era, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where soundtracks could do something like this. Yeah, I'm curious to see what the music's like in the second one. I know we'll get a lot of Axel F playing, I'm sure, but
beyond that, what kind of pop hits are they going to put in there for us?
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to say on Beverly Hills Cop?
I don't think so. I'm excited to watch the sequels. I think this one was pretty familiar to me. Watching it again was fun, and there's some little spots in there that bring back some nostalgia for me. But I don't really know the sequels, so 2 and 3 are going to be pretty fresh for me.
Yeah, same.
Looking
forward
to
it.
You? Yeah.
Well, no, just as far as the milk goes, it's pretty much just soundtracks, and then there is a spin-off TV show they tried, and I'm going to try to nail down that and find that pilot, which I think Eddie Murphy's in it, even as Jackson Foley, but it's like his son. And then there's a couple video games too that I'm going to have to suffer through. So we'll get to those as we watch these movies and over the next couple weeks. So till then,
one more plug. We like to put a survey. You heard us talking about Garfield at the top of this episode. We're going to make a new survey for this movie. And it helps us out if you take that. We'll read your jokes on air next week. And check the show notes of this episode if you want to take a peek at the survey.
Yeah, you can go to our subreddit as well, Milking the Franchise subreddit. And you can I post the survey every week there. And also check out our YouTube channel, Milking the Franchise. I put up video games from all the franchises that we watch, of me, videos of me playing them. So check that out as well.
Yeah.
Until then, keep it squeal.
Keep it squeal.
No, we need a new sign off now for Beverly Hills Cop.
We can't keep that one. We'll think about that, and we'll come back to you with a new sign off next week. But join us next week for Beverly Hills Cop 2.
See ya.